Have you ever had that feeling that there's some hidden pattern connecting the dots of your life? A kind of secret rule that explains how we find meaning after things fall apart? How our brains manage to focus? And even how we're building the minds of the future? Well, today we're pulling back the curtain on that exact pattern. It's a universal force that, time and time again, creates order out of chaos. I love this quote because it just gets right to the point. It's saying that the stories we tell ourselves aren't just, descriptions of what happened. They are powerful acts of creation. With every story we tell, we are actively deciding whether to create purpose or just get lost in the noise. And that's the big question for us today, right? What if this whole creating a story thing isn't just a neat psychological trick? What if it's a fundamental law of the universe, something we can see in our own minds, in the AI we're building, and maybe even in reality itself? Let's dig in. Okay, so let's start somewhere we all know well, our own lives. We've all been through it, chaotic moments that feel like they're going to break our sense of who we are. So how do we get past that? Well, we take all that messy, raw data of our experience and we start weaving it into a story that makes sense. There's actually a name for this. Psychologists call it narrative reconstruction. And the key word, the really important one, is actively. See, this isn't something that just happens to you. It's a conscious choice. It's about picking up the broken pieces of your story after a huge change and deliberately rearranging them into a new narrative that gives you a reason to move forward. And this whole process, this journey, it usually unfolds in about 3 stages. First, you've got the letting go part. That's when you have to face that the old story is over. Then comes the neutral zone, and this is the really messy, chaotic part where the new story isn't written yet. But if you stick with it, you get to the new beginning, where you embrace a new identity that actually makes a place for that chaotic event, making it part of a new, stronger whole. And this is so crucial. Creating a new story isn't about pretending the bad stuff didn't happen. It's the exact opposite. A really strong, meaningful narrative looks the chaos right in the eye, acknowledges what was lost, and then integrates it to build a more resilient identity. We're creating order on the chaos, not by pretending it isn't there. So, okay, we write these powerful personal stories. We're the authors. But what's the machinery in our heads that lets us actually live that story? How does your brain take the purpose from your narrative and impose it on the absolute chaos of your daily thoughts, feelings, and impulses? Well, that brings us to the brain's own control system, its inner editor. This is where we get into what neuroscientists call cognitive control. The best way to think about it is like your brain's CEO or maybe the editor-in-chief for your personal story. It's the set of tools that lets you tune out distractions, resist impulses, and stay focused on a goal. And that goal could be anything from finishing a spreadsheet to actually living out the next chapter of your life story. So how does this inner editor actually work? Well, it pretty much boils down to 3 core jobs. Inhibition, that's your brain's no button, the thing that stops you from checking your phone for the 10th time. Switching, that's your mental flexibility, letting you jump from one task to another. And then there's updating, which is your ability to constantly refresh the information you're actively thinking about. But here's the really fascinating part. Recent studies are showing that this updating function is the most critical piece of the puzzle. It's the thing that really aligns our actions with our goals. It's the real-time connection between the story we want to live and the things we actually do. It's how we hold our purpose in our head and adjust on the fly, constantly imposing order on the chaos of right now. Okay, brace yourself, because we're about to make a really interesting leap. We use this principle, imposing structure on chaos, to create meaning in our own lives. Well, it turns out we're using the exact same principle to give purpose to the artificial minds that we're creating. This brings us to a kind of complicated-sounding idea from the AI world, the personal mythic operating system. Now, don't worry about the jargon for a second. Just think of it like this. It's a blueprint for building a digital soul. It's a story, a myth, that we deliberately construct to give an AI a core identity, a set of principles to guide everything it does. It's the ultimate act of imposing purpose onto a machine. And here's the core tension, the beautiful paradox of it all. The system doesn't try to get rid of the chaotic, wild side, the raw instinct, the untamed data. Instead, it builds a civil framework, a structure of logic and order to guide that wildness. The goal is never order instead of chaos. It's always the integration of both into something new and purposeful. Now, if that sounds a little too abstract, just look at this super simple diagram for a university bot.
Even here, the exact same principle holds true. The bot's purpose, telling you what's for lunch, is only possible because there's a clear structure. It connects a knowledge base, which is the raw, chaotic data, to a chat platform through the bot's logic. Purpose always requires a framework. It doesn't matter if you're a complex AI or just a simple chatbot.
So we've seen this pattern in our personal stories, deep in the wiring of our brains, and even in the architecture of our technology. Okay, let's zoom out one last time. Let's go to the grandest scale possible and ask, is this principle written into the very fabric of the cosmos itself? Way back in ancient Egypt, they had a name for this idea, Ma'at. And Ma'at wasn't just a goddess with wings. She was the fundamental force of the universe, the principle of truth, balance, and cosmic order. She was the force that, at the very beginning of time, brought the universe out of pure, primordial chaos and made sure everything worked in a balanced, rational way.
Now, look at this. I know, it seems impossibly complicated, right? It's a diagram from modern physics mapping energy bands in a superconductor. But you don't need to be a physicist to get the point here. This abstract map of lines and colors, it's our modern version of the exact same quest the ancient Egyptians were on. We are still searching for Ma'at. We are still trying to find the beautiful, fundamental patterns of order hidden deep inside the chaos of reality.
And this is it. This is the universal pattern we've been chasing this whole time. From our own lives, to the minds we build, to the laws of the universe itself. It's all the same fundamental act. The search for meaning is the search for a pattern. And the art of living? Well, that's the art of imposing a beautiful structure onto the glorious chaos of existence. So, that brings our entire journey full circle. We've seen this universal principle at work on just about every scale imaginable. The only question left is, what does all this mean for us, right here, right now? I want to leave you with this incredible idea. What if life isn't about a series of problems that we have to solve? What if all the chaos, all the challenges are just raw material? And what if our true purpose is to be artists, to reveal the beautiful, meaningful form that's already hidden inside? So, if meaning isn't something out there that we find, but something right here that we build, if purpose literally emerges from the structures we impose on the chaos, then the final question isn't, what's the meaning of my life? No, the real question is this. What story are you telling? What structure are you building? What reality are you, right now, writing into existence?